someone said marriage is your last best chance to grow up. The couple we're going to be visiting now have had a huge grace grower and have overcome. Just a joy to have Jeff and Rose Goodwin here from Truro, Nova Scotia. And we're just doing all the connectors. You were in this audience, Jeff, in '92, we're figuring out, with your son. I interviewed you briefly.
Yeah.
And for a much more significant stretch, you represented this ministry.
That's right. Yeah, I came on with Crossroads in 2001, and as the ministry rep for Eastern Canada until 2006.
And we might still have you if you'd been willing to leave your beloved East Coast.
That's right. Couldn't do it.
Well, it's a joy to have you here. And well, this story takes a nasty turn on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
But I'd like to start with wedding pictures. Isn't it fun to look back?
Scary.
How many years? We're going back to
31
31.
years.
hey, the year I came to know the Lord. 1978. This is July 28th. And a lovely couple. Where did this take place?
This was in the Annapolis Valley of Nova Scotia at Acadia University. That's Rose's dad. That's me.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's Rose. Yeah, in Wolfville, Nova Scotia.
And all was well. You had 2 children. Lots of interesting adventures in and out of pastoring, and you directed Teen Challenge for a time. Jeff, glad you were with us too. Valentine's Day, 1994. Now, prior to this, had you had health issues, Rose?
I had
Was there
them.
any warning?
There was little warnings, like I'd have a numbness in my face or my fingers, and they had told me that it was MS, but not to worry about it.
It
was just a
wasn't
mild-
compromising your lifestyle in a
Nothing
big
at
way.
all.
So what happened on February 14th, 1994?
We were at a conference in Kentville, and all of a sudden we were in bed, and I just felt like I couldn't breathe anymore, and my face was tightening. I felt it was twisting, so I woke him. He was sleeping, I was reading. I said, something's wrong. So he turned and looked at me, and he said it was almost like I had had a stroke.
I thought it was a stroke. I mean, it was just so obvious to me. And I began immediately to feel sick to my stomach. I knew we were in trouble. And so we knew of a nurse, a pastor's wife that was a nurse staying at the same hotel that we were in. And I called her room and I said, you've got to come. She came in and spent maybe 5 minutes with us, and she said, you need to get her to Halifax as quick as you can. And so she was able to walk from the motel room to the car after a fashion. I knew that she was halting as she was walking. And well, it was about an hour's drive to Halifax, and then when we got there, she couldn't get out of the car. During that hour, the damage was happening, and it just wiped out the entire left side of her body from top to bottom.
How frightening.
That was what it was. When you woke up the next morning, could not move, could not do the things you used to do.
What did the doctors say?
Not much hope.
Yeah.
In fact, they encouraged Jeff to find a nice place to just put me in and be looked after.
Yeah, they didn't think that she would ever walk again. And the top neurologist in Eastern Canada, really, who specializes with MS patients, he came into her room, you know, and he lifted up her left arm about this high, like this, and then he let go and it dropped. He did that about 3 times, and he said, that is very dense, and walked out of the room with no comment to either of us. And so we thought, uh-oh. And then later, neurologists and doctors came and spoke with me privately, and they said, you need to leave her here for about 8 weeks for rehab and see what we can accomplish. She's going to have to learn to transfer from wheelchair to sofa and so on and so forth. Pretty frightening. Actually, at that time, Moira, she couldn't swallow. And so they were feeding her with a nose tube through the nose down into her stomach. And they told me privately, they said, unless she can get some recovery of her gag reflex, and unless she can get calories, we're in a serious pickle.
You might not live.
Exactly.
How old were your children?
9 and 11.
9 and 11 or something like that, yeah.
Boy and a girl.
Yeah.
Just your body made you a prisoner. completely, and was threatening to take your life.
And for once in my life, they wanted me to eat lots of calories. You know, us girls, we want to count the calories and
Stay
slow
away
down.
from them.
Well, this is the thing. After 2 weeks of this, no change in the hospital, and we have people taking care of our home and our children, and I'm running into the hospital and sleeping on chairs and cots and everything. She wanted to come home, and what do you mean, come home? How do we go home? So I started talking to the doctors about, we want to go home, and
they said,
you
no
can't
way.
go home. So I just was very insistent, and one doctor said, she'll have to be able to eat 1,200 calories per day before we will even let you do it. So we prayed, Lord, restore Rose's gag reflex, just enough so that she can begin to eat. Long story short, we got up to the 1,200 calories with yogurts and puddings and you name it. Finally got to that place where her gag reflex was starting to recover, and we were getting pretty excited. I had to sign off, let them off the hook to take her home. I took her home on her 39th birthday, and the first thing we did when we got home that morning was turn on 100 Huntley Street.
Oh, I hope we were encouraging on
Yes,
that day.
actually she fell asleep, but
And that was good
That was
because
good.
I hadn't
Okay.
been sleeping.
Whatever you need.
Yeah.
We want to
The
provide.
Lord,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
The
anyway.
Lord gave us
Now, speaking of what you needed, Rose, everything,
everything.
complete care. I mean, you couldn't comb your hair or...
I took a glue gun, Moira, and took all of her makeup sticks and glue gunned the cartridge to the dresser so that with one hand she could pull out the lipstick. Got mad at that too, and she went.
Well, it gradually seemed like everything was being
It
taken
was
from me.
sinking
like
in that this is pretty permanent.
Like I had to do it this way, and I got mad one day and just threw it all off on the floor.
There have to be moments of frustration.
Great frustration.
There were a few knuckle holes in gyp-rock walls in our home for a little while.
For a little while, yeah.
Now, you were both pastoring. You were sharing in the pastoring duties at a church at that time. I know there was help, and this is a wonderful part of being part of God's family. You get the food, and you get
Yes,
the help
yes.
with the laundry
Yes,
and the caregiving. But this was not something that was quickly resolved. There was no miraculous healing. I don't know if that was a huge disappointment, because I'm sure everyone was
Absolutely.
praying.
It was, yeah.
Absolutely, panic prayer.
And in our hearts, we feel like, well, we've been doing this for God, so God will certainly
Yeah, what's the deal?
heal us. You
Lord,
know,
why?
And we were in ministry, so therefore we have to be, healed, and we have to be well.
We one of our biggest disappointments, I would say, the older people, the ones that had been Christians for a longer period of time in our church, were good. You know, they came and they helped and they encouraged. We had experienced quite a bit of growth in our congregation at that time, and a lot of new people coming in and accepting Christ as their Savior, and it was wonderful. We were so thrilled. And we were going out on the Indian Reserve and bringing the gospel there, and we were probably doing more than we should. At the time of the attack, we knew we were both very tired, and the time away we thought would be the rest that we would need, you know. But anyway, we felt so badly. I would say within 3 to 6 months, about 40% of our growth disappeared in our church, because these were new people who had come into our church and accepted Christ, but they could not understand, why would God let our leaders go through this terrible situation?
So they were disillusioned and
Very
left
much,
the
very
church.
much. Left the
Yes.
church. Yeah.
You would not have had the availability to input the way you
Right.
had.
Yeah.
And you're a constant caregiver here, too.
Yeah.
And this would ultimately lead to you quitting.
I did. I resigned about less than a year after this, and just not knowing what will we do with our lives. Lord, what is this all about, you know?
The devastation in a home, especially with little kids, and your husband looking after you. Like you like to have your self-respect, your femininity intact when you're with your husband, you know, and you want to feel like you're attractive to him. Well, you lose all of that because he's helping you with everything. Well, he was a great hairdresser, come to find out.
Well, you know, the reality here is you both lost your identity on just about every level except as parents, but even that was compromised. You are no longer pastoring. your normal life functions are completely altered. This must have been fearful for both of you.